Hey guys, Andy here from Mediocre Hobbies, bringing you the next video in the new Leagues of Votann playlist. This time we are going to be working on those beautiful Pioneer jet bikes. We are of course going to be doing them in the same red scheme that I did my Cal in the last video. Just want to say once again a big thank you to Games Workshop for sending out the new Leagues of Votann army sets for me to review. It allowed me to make these awesome videos for you guys and help you out decide whether Leagues of Votann are for you. And if you do manage to get the box set, maybe help you guys out a little bit in the how to paint them category. I just want to start the video off by saying a big thank you to all of my current Patreon backers. Without you guys, I wouldn't be able to keep the lights on or make these videos to help out the warhammer community as a whole. So a big thank you to all of my current Patreon backers. If any of you guys out there are not currently backing me on Patreon and would like to know all the details about that, there's links to my campaign below, and we'd be more than happy to have you guys join in the fun. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so the beautiful Pioneer jet bikes. The only downside I found to these particular miniatures is that I couldn't figure out a way of sub-assembling them to keep the rider off. He's very integrated into it, which made the painting of the miniature a little bit more complicated. I mean, the way I paint wasn't too bad, but I can see other people who like to be a little bit more meticulous might struggle a little bit. So I started with Blood Angel's red contrast, and I applied that to all of the armor panels across the bike and the rider that are supposed to be red. I'm of course going for the Ymyr Conglomerate color scheme for my entire Leagues of Votann army. I'm very excited to build out this force to proper army size as soon as the rest of the releases catch up with this amazing launch box. So you need to be a little bit careful here, but not too crazy. Obviously we'll be painting most of the other sections of this bike darker colors, which means that it will go over any red mistakes quite well. I do still like to be careful as it will kind of stain or color some of the later layers if you do go over, but like I said, nothing we can't fix later on. It will just slow down the process. So I'm using a fine pointed brush and loading it up with Blood Angel's red contrast quite a lot, and then going over the large flat panels with quite a thick coat, and then of course just pulling it away where it pools. I find this is the best way to get a nice smooth coat of contrast across any big open spaces and power armor and such. I have absolutely no fear of using contrast on anything, vehicles, tanks, walkers, anything. With this technique it tends to work out quite well. So this is the Blood Angel's red contrast all over the parts that I wanted. I do actually change my mind a little bit later on what parts I want to be red, but we will get to that at the end and I'll sort it out for you. We use Black Templar's contrast, and with this we're going to basically base coat in the rest of the bike. There's lots of metallic bits to this bike, and white is not a great, but the Grey Seer spray that I used is not a fantastic base coat to be working from. That is another thing I forgot to say at the start of this video, is that I did spray the entire miniature with Chaos Black spray, and then I gave the whole thing a heavy zenithal of Grey Seer. This is my preferred method of starting out with contrast paints. So like I said, everything that I want to be metallic after this, I'm going to give a coat of Black Templar contrast just to darken it down and get to a much better starting point for those metallics. There's other bits and pieces on the miniature that also need to go black, like his boots and some of the kind of cases and stuff that are off the back of his bike. I didn't go into the cases too much, as every person will paint them slightly differently depending on what you want them to be. From here I moved over to Wildwood. I decided to go with the dark kind of duster leather coat for all of my Pioneer jet bike riders, even the one that has the gunner on the back. They've all got gonna have these dark deep brown leather jackets. It was shown in one of the art pieces, but some people like to paint them all different colors. I decided to make it more of a uniform style thing, kind of like the Eldar jet bikes that came out, the Pathfinder ones. There was the beautiful red armor with the nice flowing coats over the top. I really like that aesthetic, so I decided to pull it over from there. With the Wildwood done, it was time to move over to Space Wolves Grey, and for the Ymyr Conglomerate, the kind of cloth and trouser parts of these miniatures are done in like a smoky bluey grey. So I'm going to start with the Thunderhawk Blue, the Space Wolves Grey contrast paint, and then a little bit later on we'll move over to Thunderhawk Blue for layering it up. Golem and Flesh was used for the tiny amount of skin that is showing on these miniatures, which is basically just their foreheads, as they're all wearing goggles and masks and stuff like that. They're wearing thick gloves as well, so it's quite a small section. Lead belcher was then used on most of those bits that we did the Black Templar on. We're going to add a quick layer on top of all of the black, just to start getting the idea of where all of our metallics will sit. This stage took a little bit of time because there is actually quite a lot of metallics on this piece, and they're all kind of tucked away, those grav motors and stuff, and the shock suspension and all those bits and pieces I decided to give a nice coat of lead belcher to. It was kind of more of a layer. I did leave a lot of the black in the recesses and stuff to help me out the layering later on. Why cover back over the whole thing when it just acts as pretty nice natural shading. I am a big fan of the entire new range of League of Votann. Every time they show off something new, I get more and more sucked in. I cannot wait to own enough miniatures in this collection to actually get them on a table and play some cool games. It was then time to shade the entire miniature down. Now, if you followed along with the cowl that I painted up, you know that the Reichel Flesh shade works absolutely beautifully across all of the red and of course gold that he had on him. There's no gold on these guys. They're not quite as ornate as their lofty hero, but it does sit across the red beautifully, and of course will cause it to have the matching tone of the cowl and make the army as a whole feel much more uniformed. So quick and easy, it'll work beautifully over the rich browny red leather of the Rhinox hide, Wildwood should I say. But yeah, just make sure you get into all the nooks and crannies and get it washed down. So this is the bike after the contrast, or the shade has dried. I've also thrown some debris basing material on as well. That helps to give me that kind of asteroid moon look that I'm going for their bases. Mephiston red was used to layer up all of the red panels again, just to make them a little bit brighter. Normally I'm just a kind of one layer kind of painter, just to knock a bit of color into it and give it a nice bit of almost like shine, but the Mephiston didn't quite give me the highs that I wanted to. I learned that from painting up the cowl. Once I finished the Mephiston red layering stage, I wanted to go a little bit further, so from there I jumped up with an Evil Sun Scarlet layer, and I just hit all of the raised areas with that again. That added the kind of color I wanted to, and definitely gave me a finish I was much happier with having across an entire army. As you can see, it just adds a nice bit of oomph to the paint job. That is of course the technical term for that, the oomph of paint job. Don't judge me. If anyone has any better words to use than oomph, maybe you can add in the comments below and help me out here so I don't have to say oomph again in any other painting videos. So I took my time here. I left all of the darker reds and all the shadows and recesses and just hit the all the higher points, like I said, with a nice layer. And from there, I started to really like the paint scheme. Rhinox hide was used to layer up those beautiful leather coats. Once again, very simple, hitting all the raised areas and leaving all the deepest recesses, that nice shaded down Wildwood. Being careful now at this stage not to hit anything else, as the red is on the final stage and stuff like that. We don't want to be making a mess of anything and have to keep going back and forth painting and repairing. From there we moved over to the Thunderhawk Blue, and this is to layer up the trousers on these guys. I actually can't wait to paint a basic infantry so I can see what the how much of the blue is actually supposed to be on the model. The ones I painted up so far have very little of their actual cloth uniforms on show, but I do feel like the Thunderhawk Blue will be a much more prevalent color on the rest of the army. But it still adds a nice touch of color to even these pioneers and the cowl. Time to move over and get the metallic parts of it really popping. So we're going to go for the Ironbreaker and basically do the same stage we did when we applied the lead belcher in the basing scheme, but just go a little bit less. Maybe give it kind of 60 to 70% coverage we did on the lead belcher. Just add those nice fresh highlights and make those metallic parts pop. Remember, these are dwarves at the end of the day. They know how to take care of their equipment and their machinery. These are kind of wholly revered machines, so we want them to look nice and fresh. I went to use some bold titanium white, and I basically gave all of the lenses, goggles, lights, all of those bits and pieces a coat of this, so that we went in with a nice contrast later on. It was going to look like glowing lights. Very quick and easy step to do. Cadian flesh tone was used to layer up the forehead of this miniature, as it's the only bit of skin on show. But obviously I want to keep the skin tone nice and dark. Dwarves have that much more kind of reddy pinky tones. And when the Berserker miniatures come out for this range, I cannot wait to actually try and get that tone done properly. Talazar Blue is applied to all of the bits that we used the titanium bold white on. So all of the lenses and glowy bits. There's little lights basically hidden throughout the miniature. So have a good nosy around when you did it, and I just gave them all a nice coat of Talazar and pretty much left them at that. I did go back to this headlight here and go back over the grading on top of it with a bit of that silver again. Just because I imagine these guys are cruising along in the middle of the day, so the lights are still blue, still on, but they're not shining through. It was at this point that I felt that the model just was a little bit too red. So I decided to check out the Codex, and of course I was wrong. Parts of this model are definitely more black than red. So I decided to take a brave move, go back to a nice black paint and black in some of the areas. So I went for the struts that hold on the front suspension parts and did those in black, and then the bottom discs, all of the suspension things, I also did those in black as well, just to break up the amount of red that was on the miniature. I do feel it was too much. It wasn't sitting right with me. I was trying to decide, like I was at the point where the miniature should have been finished and I didn't feel like it was finished. But after I did this, I was much happier with the result, and I was very much happy to say that this miniature is now complete. So with that, that brings a close to me painting up one of the beautiful new League of Votann Pioneer jet bikes. I started painting this bike up yesterday morning. When I'd finished work in the evening time, I just cracked out and painted the other two up to the watch stage. So when I finished editing this video here, I get to finish up and immediately finish painting the other two, which I cannot wait to do. So that should tell you all you need to know about these absolutely fantastic models. And there we have it, guys, one of the new Pioneer jet bikes all finished up. As you saw throughout the video, I kind of argued with myself a little bit back and forth as to how much of the model should be red or silver or grey. And by the time I got into near the end, I did decide that there was in fact a little bit too much red on that. And then after referring back to the Codex, I did notice that the jet bikes that they had done had a little bit more black on it. So I toned back the red a little bit, painted in some bits in black, and by the end I was very happy with the result. And I cannot wait to finish off the other two jet bikes. I have actually been painting along with them, and they're about 80% done, so they'll be finished after I'm through editing up this video for you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you did like it, make sure that you do hit the like button. If you have any questions about anything that I did in the video, put it in the comments below, and I will get back to each and every one of you guys. And if for some bizarre reason you are not already subscribed, it would mean the world to me if you took 2 seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button and jump on over to the Mediocre Hobbies family. Thank you guys so much for watching to the end of the video. I'll see you in the next one.